Hello and welcome. In today's exciting episode, I take this very bumpy knit fabric, I stabilize it by sewing it to a backing fabric, and then I make a jacket out of it. It's perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Perfect jacket. I was going to put this caramel knit away, but I just couldn't. I've had it for so many years and I just want to make it up into a jacket. And I finally figured out how I'm going to manage it because it's only 1 yard, like just, I think it's slightly less, but it feels like slightly less. Anyway, I'm going to use the Burda 6123, but this other Burda jacket that I don't have this pattern, but I just saw it, it's a new one and I like it. It's got cut lines in the middle of the torso, and in view B on the cuffs there's extensions as well. So I thought maybe I'll do that with this pattern, Burda 6123. So I'm going to cut up the pieces and so this is the back. I'm cutting it on the folds there. And this is the front. The whole of the front I'm managing to cut in one bit. So that's the left and then the other side is the right. And as you can see, the sleeves aren't full length. So these fluoro bits are the sleeves. So that's the back sleeve. This is the front sleeve. And then that bit there is the bottom of the back. So because I had to sort of cut it off really cropped. So now I've cut out all the pieces. Here we go. So they're all laid out, and that's the front with the sleeves and the two bits of the back with the back sleeve. This shadowy bit in the middle here is the structural layer for the lining. The front of the lining is made out of tweed or like knit, but I've run out of fabric. So I'm going to have to find another tweed, scraps from another tweed jacket I made. I keep the scraps in case I need them for something or to make a patchwork jacket. So I'm going to go through them and find a tweed that matches this one and cut out this last bit. So I have a plain brown, which is, it's a bit boring, but it's good for this. So it's just on the left of the screen there. So that's the front, and this here is the back section, back of the jacket. So now we have the plain brown is the facing, so the front of the lining. So next step is I have to stitch the backing fabric, that neon yellow netting, to the actual fabric. And then, and then I can start sewing the jacket together. But because it's a knit, you have to stabilize it first before you can sew any of the bits together. Otherwise, it'll just sort of stretch out of shape. So I've put in pins where I'm going to sew, and then I went along and hand sewed the two layers together. And it took ages, but I didn't really get much footage of it because it's boring, but it's necessary. So once they're all done, it is time to start sewing all the pieces together. So I'm going to sew the facing to the front two pieces, the front left and the front right first. So I machine sewed them together. So this is the front left and the front right. So, and then I've pinned back the seam allowance. So now I'm going to hand sew these together. And then once this is done, I'll sew the back and the front together. It's just less awkward this way. There's less pins in the way. So I'm doing it this way. And as I mentioned at the start of the video, I couldn't cut the whole thing out in one bit. So the cuffs, or the bottom half of the sleeves, and the back of the bottom half of the back, those are separate parts. So when I did the back one, for example, I stitched each piece to the backing fabric, and then I also stitched the backing fabric and the two bits together, sort of darning them together. Here it is. So first I did the line across at the top of the bottom piece, and then sewed across at the bottom of the top piece. Then I turned the whole thing over. You can't really see here, but I darned it from this side, and that's what all those messy sort of scratchy stitches are across there. So And you won't be able to see any of the back once the lining is in. The inner back, of course, you'll be able to see the back of the jacket. Anyway, once the jacket is finished, I'm also thinking of doing beaded trim. Instead of doing all over beading like I did on the navy and orange jacket, I'm thinking of doing beaded trim. See, this one just has a standard beaded trim, and this one has a double belt, the orange one. That's just yellow one. It's because I was trying to use up all my yellow beads on that one. That's a Chanel tweed. And it's got little bits of lemony yellow in there, which is why I use the yellow. Yeah, you can sort of see the yellow bits in there. And it's also got this metallic, it's from Italy. Once they made the tweed, once it was finished, then they screen printed that metallic purple over the top. It's so amazing. I've also got one with metallic red flowers over the top, kind of similar but different colorway. So cool. I love them. And this one, I'm just getting distracted here. I love this tweed. This is a Linton tweed from the UK. And then I really like the beaded trim I did on that one, but it's too light. It's not heavy enough. And if you're wondering why I have the tulle over the top, the bridal tulle over the top, it's because when I first started making these jackets and wearing them, it's really wearing expensive jackets, like with lots of beading on them, you have to be very, very careful with them because it's just so much beading. And yeah, I guess when I started, I wasn't really used to wearing such expensive pieces. So I just added that layer of protection over the top. And I guess I could go in and sort of take them off. But I don't know. I kind of like that there's this progression of, they chart my evolution and, me getting better as someone who does beading, but also better at wearing expensive clothing. Anyway, once I finish this caramel one, I'm going to, they're darned, but I'm going to put beading over the top as well, beaded trim. Oh, and please just ignore my wall of tweeds in the background there. If you've been watching for a while, you'll know that I tend to get them out and KonMari them it's becoming more frequent. It used to be every 6 months or so, but now it's every 2 or 3 months because, I am getting a lot of jackets made. That is the good thing about it. So, when I first started, I used to only make one jacket. I'd take a month to make the actual jacket and then take a month to do the beading. And while I was making the jacket, I was the whole time I was thinking about what sort of beading it should have on it. And now I'm making one every week or every 2 weeks. It's quite the hectic pace. There will probably be a KonMariing my tweeds yet again video in the near future. But for now, it is time to get back to this caramel jacket. It reminds me so completely of a pine tree, like the trunk of it, the gnarly old trunk. It's gorgeous fabric. Anyway, I've got lots more hand sewing to do. I shall go do it. Wow. This jacket is basically just hand sewing. So that is all done. I've hand stitched the seam allowance down on those. So now I just have to lie down the back. This is the back part. And now I just have to pin on the sleeve on the back bit, on the left, on the right. And then do the pin on the front sleeves and then pin on the 2 fronts. So this is the lazy way of doing it. I think if I'd had more time, I would have just darned the sleeve extensions onto each of the actual sleeves, then machine sew on the sides and the shoulder seams. But this is just, sort of mushing all the steps together. So I put down the back sleeves and now the front sleeves, and now I'm putting on the front left or right and then the other side. I don't know my left from my right. And I've pinned them all together. And because it's so bulky, this fabric is really bobbly. I've had to use my really big pins. They're sort of like hat pins. They're so big. It's ridiculous. Luckily, I've got about 40 or 50 of them. So, because the regular size pins weren't really doing it. So I've got all the layers together, and then I very, very, very carefully machine stitch them all. And then I had to reinforce it, do it again, because this fabric is just so bulky. I mean, the end jacket looks fabulous. And I hand stitched down all the seam allowance, and I also measured and turned up the hem, and then I pinned that as well. And carefully did all that. And once that was done, then I pulled the sleeves through and turned it around the correct way. So on the inside, all the stitching is done. But now all I have to do is from the outside, I sort of have to stitch down the top edge of these sleeve extensions, and then sort of darn it together. You just sort of stitch it really slowly and carefully, each stitch quite close to each other, and that way it won't ever unravel. It's a knit, so it's not really going to anyway, but it's just, it's similar to how you darn a sock, that sort of thing, and you just go round each sort of, it's just below the elbow on each. And I haven't done the lining yet, so I'll do that. Because I was doing so much hand stitching, like the sort of darning between each one, I ran out of time to make the lining. It's not a difficult lining to make. It's just, 2 front pieces and 1 back piece. Sew them together, then you sew them to the inside front, and then you sew them all together around the neckline, and then you hand stitch at the hem. And that's basically it. But I didn't really have time just because I was doing all that hand stitching sort of darning thing. But now that I'm looking at it, you can't even really, I did such a good job with the hand stitching, you can't really tell where all the pieces are stitched together. And I have to say, I really like the longer length of these sleeves too. I haven't turned up the cuffs yet, so they're not going to be quite this long, but they are regular length, and I really like that about it. And I love how textured this, I keep going to say tweed, but it's a knit. I love how textured it is. It is so bumpy and bulky, and it was an absolute devil to hand stitch down because it just took so long because you have to sort of hold it differently. But it looks great. It looks so good. I've got it in another colorway. It's sort of magenta and green. It's really beautiful. So I'll probably do the same with that one as well. But now I've seen this finished jacket, I don't think I will do the beaded trim around the outside. Oh, look how precarious those stacks of tweed are. Oh my goodness. But I don't think I'll do these beaded trims. I love beaded trims, and I really do think I should make some more, but I think I'll save it for the Vogue 7975s. This one I just finished, I finished the outer jacket of, is the Burda 6123, and it's an awesome pattern. It's one of my current favorites, but the Vogue 7975 is just the best jacket pattern that I've ever used. It's easy to alter it because it's got so many points where you can alter it, but also it's the perfect shape to put the weight of beaded trim. It's just because it's that little bit more fitted, and it's just so flattering. So I think, with this one here, I don't think beaded trim is the best option. The bit where I joined the 2 sleeves, like the sleeve additions to the actual sleeves, is a little bulky just because it's so many 2 bulky layers all in one. But also, it's such a bulky fabric. If I put beads in there, it will sort of weigh it down in a good way. And I can just, when I look at a jacket, I just see what it would look like with really good beading on it. And I think this one will be fully embellished. If I'd used this fabric on the Vogue 7975, then I think I might have been tempted to do beaded trim. But as it is, I think this particular textile, using this particular pattern, I think it will look really, really good. It will carry the weight of beading really well. I think I'll do black beads or black and brown beads just in the sort of holes in the dips, the troughs between all the big bubbles. I think it's going to look awesome. I have to put the lining in first. But yeah, I'm really happy with the way it's turning out. Anyway, that is it for this video. Next up, goodness me, we're at the end of September already. Can you believe it? The next video will be my October sewing plans. So yeah, I don't actually know what that video is going to have in it yet. So wish me luck. But thank you again for watching. I'm very impressed with the way I darned together all the pieces of this jacket. They look really good. And once I beaded it over, they will, they're going to stay. The amount of hand sewing in this piece, oh my goodness. But once I add the layers of beads, it's never going to come apart, ever. Okay, thanks for watching. Happy sewing.